From the Battery Street studios of KCBS Radio in San Francisco, I'm Matt Pitman, and this is Bay Current for Wednesday, October 20th. Another key decision by the F.D.A. regarding vaccines and booster shots in the fight against COVID-19 is expected as soon as today. For more insight and information, I caught up with KCBS Radio's Matt Bigler. What are we expecting to hear from the FDA?
So the FDA tomorrow, which would be Wednesday, is expected to approve booster shots for all three of the vaccines, for Johnson & Johnson, for Moderna, and for Pfizer. If you got one of those shots 6 months later, you can get a booster shot, which is a, I believe, slightly smaller dose that gives your body an extra boost of immunity toward COVID-19, and that should be officially endorsed by the FDA tomorrow.
So is this as mix and match as it sounds?
Yes. So that's what has happened in other countries and in some places in the U.S. is that if you don't have, for example, Moderna, and you have a patient who got Moderna the first time around, you don't have it, well, have Pfizer, have Johnson & Johnson. The FDA is also expected to say that's okay. You can go ahead and mix and match. It will boost your immune system no matter what you started with. If you have another shot of any of the vaccines, that is medically acceptable.
The reason why I asked the basic question, is this as mix and match as it sounds? Because that seems very simple, right?
Yeah.
It seems very easy to kind of wrap your head around. And, for better or worse, a lot of the guidance and some of the, whether it be from the CDC or the FDA, hasn't been as easy to digest. And I think that's made it difficult for people to know what the next step would be for them, and certainly it hasn't helped in a lot of the disinformation and misinformation that is out there. But this seems like a very clear message. I would imagine this might be a significant development in terms of getting people that booster shot at the right time as we head into winter when everyone's going to be going back inside again.
Right. There's a lot of people who, this is the 6-month period is coming up now that they are eligible for to get a booster shot. And the one group of people that will really want to think about doing this is if you got a J&J vaccine. I don't know what vaccine you got, Matt, but Pfizer. I know some people in our newsroom got J&J. One shot, one, and you're done. Great. But it hasn't been quite as good. The immunity isn't quite as good as the other vaccines. And in fact, a study has shown, the study that came out last week showed that if you got J&J and you got a booster of J&J, your immunity went up, or your antibodies, went up about 4%.
Okay.
If you got a J&J originally and then you got a Moderna booster shot, your antibodies went up 76%.
From 4?
Yeah. So that's the difference. They compared.
That's the difference, right? 4 versus
76.
My goodness.
Which one are you going to do?
Right.
So yeah, if you fall into that group that you started with J&J, you'll want to get a booster shot, and you'll want to get something that's not J&J if the study is it proves out to be accurate.
Makes me wonder what the effectiveness of getting J&J as your booster, if you're like me, had Pfizer as your first 2 doses, if J&J is as effective as a booster as, say, a third Pfizer shot, or a Pfizer Moderna as your third shot.
There's also data out of the UK that shows mix and matching is good no matter what we're talking about, because I think it exposes your body to a slightly different version of the virus that's not that serious, but it gives your body a chance to build up its immunity that's not just focused on one of the vaccines. Now you've got exposure to 2 of the vaccines, which means that you're probably even stronger. Your body is stronger to confront COVID-19.
I guess for a lot of folks who are wondering about the next step for them in getting a booster, like who is in line right now to walk in and get a booster, and who are the people who are eligible next?
I think as soon as 6 months have expired, then it's time for you to get a booster if you want one.
Anyone 12 plus, pretty much?
Yeah, right. Because nothing under 12 has been approved yet. But I talked to a teacher in the East Bay today who was getting on BART, and he said, yes, I definitely want a booster, and I definitely don't want to mix and match. There are a lot of people who, it makes sense, like you said, that we understand mix and matching. That logic makes sense to us. But there are some people who, this teacher I interviewed said, I don't want to mess with it. If Moderna is working, I'm going to stick with Moderna. I don't want to have to mess with all the other craziness that's going on medically. So as long as you get a booster, it's very good. And if you do have to mix and match, that's probably fine.
The recommendation is that everyone ultimately get the booster shot.
The argument against booster shots is not that it's bad for you, it's that we have pretty good protection in this country. There are some countries that haven't had any vaccines or very few. So the vaccines that we do have, shouldn't that be going to places where they really need to have to start their vaccinations, as opposed to making us even stronger? So there is that side, but it will definitely help Americans right now who are going into the winter months, who would like to have that extra protection before we start being indoors again.
Already we're hearing about another variant strain out of, I believe, the UK. Are these boosters effective against, obviously, Delta, but whatever the next strain along the line may be?
I think so. I mean, I don't think the booster is any different than, or much different than, the original vaccine. And that's a great question. I've wondered myself many times what's being done behind the scenes to make these vaccines more effective against some of these variants that are starting to come at us. That is something I think that will happen. It's sort of like the seasonal flu shot. They get a read for what type of influenza virus is out there, and they craft the flu shot to match it or to attack it. This is the non-medical perspective, but I think that doctors and scientists will start doing that on an annual basis so that we can combat COVID kind of like we combat flu.
Always great information, Matt. Do appreciate it. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks again to my KCBS radio colleague, Matt Bigler. You can stay connected on all the latest information regarding COVID-19, vaccinations, mandates, you name it, at kcbsradio.com. And thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Bay Current on the Odyssey app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. I'm Matt Pitman. We'll chat with you tomorrow.